ever since I was a kid growing up, I knew that I belonged to a church that understood clearly and was really serious about the Great Gospel Commission that told us to go into all the world. We can quote Matthew 24:14 probably in our sleep. And I remember the very first camp meeting I went to when I was 9 years old, South Lancaster, Massachusetts. I was, I think, in the primary division. And it's the first time I was in one of these big tents and all the other kids around me. And that first evening meeting, for the mission story, we heard a story from a lady by the name of Josephine Cunnington Edwards. Oh, see, all of you are nodding because you were... Do you remember those stories? She'd get to the most exciting part of the story, and then she'd look at her watch. Oh, you say, kids, I'm out of time today, so I'll finish the story tomorrow night. And of course, tomorrow night, we couldn't wait to be there. And in my little heart, I just thrilled when I heard these missionaries. Eric B. Hare, Pip in the yellow truck, remember that story? Judy and I were down in Peru on a mission project several years ago, and the footprint and the impact of the Fernando and Anna Stahl, S-T-A-H-L. How many of you, is that a name you're familiar with? Even to this day, the footprint of what they did, what they started 80 years ago with the Incas, is an incredible testimony to how God uses people to change people's lives. Missions. It's the lifeblood of the church. And whether we realize it or not, if we really boil it all down to the reason this church, Meadowglade, Vancouver, the reason, in fact, any church that claims the name of Jesus Christ, any Christian church, we exist here for one reason, and one reason only. Go. Now, maybe you can only go across the street or down the block. But the Great Gospel Commission includes all of us to go into the whole world. Sadly, I would have to say that there are some of our churches that have forgotten what the most important thing is. A friend of mine has a motto in his office, beautiful calligraphy in the back wall. And I've adopted this motto. And I wish every church and every church board would adopt this motto because it would take care of a lot of the peripheral stuff. Should I share my motto with you? It goes like this. The main thing is that the main thing is the main thing. Think about that for a minute. That the main thing is the main thing. Seeking the lost, sharing Jesus, the gospel. But see what the enemy does. He comes in and he distracts us and he deflects us on things that really have nothing to do with people's salvation, but has everything to do with, well, what color are we going to paint the church? Or what color are we going to put for the carpeting? Or what can we serve at potluck? Or what kind of music do we sing in? I mean, you list, the list is endless of the way the enemy distracts us that the most important thing is. I've been in ministry, well, Judy and I retired a few years ago, but still retirement is not part of God's plan for his soldiers and his warriors. But I've been in ministry nearly 48 years. And I figured it out. I kind of figured it out. That unless we keep the main thing, we're going to be lost. So this morning, I want to take some time to just share with you about the way that God is working with common, ordinary people who are making an incredible difference in this world. The last 14 years of my ministry, Judy and I served as the youth and young adult directors of ministry and missions for Quiet Hour Ministries. That's the Tucker family. We got the joy of organizing and conducting over 50 mission trips, short-term projects, a week, 2 weeks, with literally thousands of high school and college kids. It can be one of the most life-altering, one of the most life-changing experiences. Incredible opportunity to see young people who, in this culture we live in today, every time you turn the radio on or you turn the television on, the message that blasts our culture, it goes something like this. If you want to be happy, make sure you get it bigger, better, and faster than the other guy. Are you with me? Give you an example. Judy and I, we just sold our home in Northern California, a little community of paradise. We've lived there for a number of years. My brother Rudy lives there. My folks retired there years ago. They both passed on, but wonderful little community. We also we purchased a little home down in the desert. And they call us snowbirds. We go down there when it's nice and warm. Well, we decided, you know what? At this stage in life, less is more. So we sold our house. Now we just got this little place down there. So we're now legally residents of Arizona. Now the hard part. When you go from a 2,000 square foot house to a 1,100 square foot house, you got to get rid of some stuff. What do you get rid of? Downsizing, they call it. Well, the local Salvation Army loved us because we kept bringing boxes and boxes of stuff. And the Dorcas, but there was some stuff that nobody wanted. So we ended up taking it to the dump. Now, they call it a landfill. I don't know why they call it a landfill. I guess everybody wants more land. Have you been to a landfill lately? It's a dump, okay? It's just pure and simply, it's stuff that nobody wants. But wait a minute. So over here in this area of the dump is a mountain of bicycles. No, they're too lazy to fix because it's not the cool mountain bike. I mean, literally mountain of bikes. And then next to it is this mountain of old appliances, the washers and the dryers and the stoves. But then over here, undercover, they have all the old electronics that people are bringing back, the old computers and the televisions. And here's a guy back in his pickup truck, and he's trying to unload this huge, it's not a flat screen television, it's one of the old big, had to weigh 200 pounds. And so now this thing worked just fine, but because it wasn't an HD flat screen, didn't meet his bigger, better, faster standard, so he's dumping it. And everywhere you look, you see stuff that once was bigger, better, and faster, but it's junk. And this is the hamster wheel that our culture finds himself in. It never ends. I wanted to go over there and grab this. It was really a cool velvet painting of Elvis. But I realized, no, I don't need that anymore. You get that picture? You take young people from this culture and you take them into a community where into a country where these people have nothing. And as mission directors, we made sure we picked areas where there was poverty very, very visible. And you know what many times happens? These young people come to realization, you know what? These people down here who have nothing are happier than I am with all my stuff. And then a priority change happens in their lives. I could tell you if young people came back, they organized their Sabbath school group, their school group to sponsor a missionary or to help out the school. That's my church. We have responded incredibly. You know, when Jesus talks about, when he separates the sheep from the goats and the left and the righteous from the... And what does he say to the righteous? He says, I was hungry and you brought me something to eat. I was naked and you clothed me and I was in prison. And what do the righteous say? They go, Lord, when did we do this? We don't remember You see, the righteous don't realize it's just part of their natural culture is to help the least of these. And so that's what Jesus says. As you did it on one of the least of these, you did it to me. Missions. After we retired, my wife and I, we still, we have our music ministry, and we've been doing some preaching. And a friend of mine, he's actually the former senior pastor that I worked with up here in Meadowglade a few years ago. How many of you know Ken Crawford and Colleen? Dear friends. They were visiting us down in our place down in Arizona, and they said, Joedy, have you ever heard of gospel outreach? I said, yes, I know of gospel outreach. I said, in fact, I was just talking to Bill Tucker, former director, speaker of Quiet Hour, and he still does active evangelism. And he did an evangelistic series in the southern part of the Philippines, in Mindanao, a very high Muslim community in the Philippines. And there were about 200 gospel outreach Bible workers that a year before he came there, they did all the groundwork. They did the Bible studies, and they did all the good, the seed planting. And so Bill Tucker and his crew go down there, and they had numerous sites of evangelism. The last count is they had over 17,000 baptisms.
Praise the Lord.
Thank you. We got one Praise the Lord corner over here. Maybe some of you are going, huh? 17,000? This is how the Spirit of God is being poured out in this world. I want to show a little video right now. And I hope you're not clock watching this morning, because some of the things I'm going to share with you today have a very strong mission focus. But gospel outreach was formed here in the Pacific Northwest 25 years ago. Now, this little DVD we have may be a couple years old, so some of the dates, but I want you to just take and get a quick look at gospel outreach and their focus.
And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come. Join us now for a journey that may change forever your understanding of foreign mission work and the fulfillment of the Great Commission. We're going to travel to an area of the world largely ignored by Christians, located between 10 degrees north and 40 degrees north latitude. It's known as the 1040 window. It stretches from North Africa toward the rising sun, across the Middle East, India, China, and southward to catch Thailand and the Philippine Islands. All told, nearly 70 countries lie within this window. The area accounts for roughly 1/3 of the world's landmass, yet 4.5 billion people live here. That's nearly 2/3 of the world's population. Poverty, hunger, illness, illiteracy, oppression, idol worship, fear, and hopelessness are ways of life for many. Dominant religions include Islam, Hinduism, and Buddhism. Worldwide, an estimated 2.84 billion people have yet to hear the gospel. If you were to guess what percentage of the unreached live in the 1040 window, what would you say? 40%? 60%? 80%? Actually, the stunning answer is 97%. Virtually all of the world's unreached people live in the 1040 window. These are people who haven't, even once, had a chance to hear the gospel. Despite the great need for the gospel in the 1040 window, less than 2% of Christian mission giving goes here.
There is enough evangelism taking place today to reach the world dozens of times. Unfortunately, most of it is happening among people who have already heard the gospel. In all candor and to our continuing shame, let us admit that the world's perishing unreached people are very seldom mentioned or thought about in almost all churches.
Gospel Outreach was founded 20 years ago to help introduce people to Jesus in the 1040 window. The all-volunteer staff works closely with the Seventh-day Adventist Church. The goal? Raise funds to support Native evangelists and Bible workers. These workers are hired and trained by local Adventist conferences. Through the Gospel Outreach Adopt a Worker program, a worker can be sponsored for $150 monthly. Compared to foreign missionaries coming into a country, Native workers have many advantages. For example, they already know the culture, religion, and language of the people. Gospel outreach is the heartbeat of the Southern Asia Division. More than 1 million people have been baptized into the Seventh-day Adventist Church as a result of gospel outreach-sponsored workers. Not only are they effective, they're efficient. On average, every $6 invested in their work results in a decision for Jesus that leads to baptism. By contrast, it costs thousands to hundreds of thousands of dollars per baptism in the United States. In the 1040 window, millions and millions of honest-hearted people are searching. They need hope. They need the Savior. Yet, they've never had the chance to hear the story of Jesus. Today, it's up to us to make a difference. We must help hasten the Lord's return. We believe. Let's act.
Now, I'm curious to know, how many of you this morning, prior to seeing this DVD clip, how many of you are friends and familiar with gospel outreach? Can I see your hands? Well, I'm glad that the rest of you now can be brought up to speed. Friends, I firmly believe organizations like Gospel Outreach are God-endowed ministries. They're going to help finish the work. Let's face it. My dad was an evangelist. He traveled all over this country and all over North America. He did. But as was said, so much of our evangelism dollars, we're plowing the same fields over and over and over again. I don't know if you caught that number, but for about every $6 invested for these gospel outreach workers, it results in I remember Dad telling me once that they spent almost $100,000 in an evangelistic series. They got about 10 baptisms, and a year and a half later, there's only 2 or 3. This gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in the whole world. That's been a head scratcher to me at times, because I'm thinking about it, I'm going, but God, there's parts of this world, if a white man showed up, you'd be hanging from the nearest tree within minutes. So how's the gospel going to reach these people that they're so closed? And this is where the brilliance, the genius of gospel outreach, where they're taking indigenous Bible workers, people that know the language, they know the culture, they know the traditions, they know the people. So they already have an automatic relationship with them. And some of these Bible workers have to be very, very subtle how they do their ministry. Many of them are doing ministry in what's called centers of influence, where a Bible worker is trained as a massage therapist, and they set up in a marketplace. And so here people come, and they have certain questions and little subtleties to find out what kind of receptive heart this person might have. Or maybe this person does manicures or pedicures. Or maybe a person is a hairstylist or a barber. And these Bible workers, they have a subtle way of finding the interested hearts. The incredible thing about gospel, Judy, come on up here. I want you to share for a minute. One of the incredible aspects of gospel outreach is their volunteer staff. Share with a minute.
Well, we were just absolutely amazed when we went to Walla Walla and we were invited to come and see the office there and talk to some of the staff people. Do you know that the staff people are all volunteers? They have one paid position in the whole organization, and that pays for their internet and
website.
IT services. Everyone else is a volunteer. Now, we've worked for a number of different organizations, and there's a whole huge difference between looking at people who volunteer their time. Some of them have been volunteering their time for over 15 years to that organization. We were so impressed. One of the reasons that we were so impressed was, I don't know if you've been keeping track of different organizations and the amount of funds that they require for overhead expenses. But Gospel Outreach is one of those unique ministries in this aspect. They keep less than 2% for overhead expenses. What does that mean to you? If you give $100, 98, is going to go to the field and the designation that you have asked for it to go to. That's amazing to me. Absolutely amazing. But we were so thrilled to see the gospel outreach workers. One of the things that Joedy and I have had the privilege of doing is to be in a lot of different countries, taking young people on mission trips. You know, a lot of the countries that we go to, we can't even speak the language. So we have to use interpreters. And it takes a long time to establish relationships when you're using interpreters all the time. There's like a wall that's there that you're trying to break through constantly. But gospel outreach uses indigenous workers. These people already speak the language. It takes missionaries years to do that, to learn the culture, to learn the traditions, to learn how to reach those people. I genuinely, truly believe that this is something that we have needed for years and years within our church. Most of us would never even dare to go to most of these countries. They are closed to Christians. Not just closed. We're talking on threat of life, literally, beheading. You know that those things are going on. But yet, the people who live there, who know the people, can work with them and share gospel. One of the things that I was thrilled about is, you know, that they don't preach like a standard sermon like we're used to hearing. They tell stories about Jesus, what Jesus did when he was here on earth, how Jesus relates to people, how he loves them, his mercy and his grace. You know why people listened in Jesus' time to his stories? Because they could understand and put them into their own lives, and they're using that same method there. It's a wonderful opportunity, and we are thrilled literally to be representing them and to have the opportunity to share of this mission outreach to the world, really. For it is true, this gospel of the kingdom must go to the whole world. And you and I can have a part of it. It's thrilling.
I'm a fairly simple-minded person. I've faked out a few people over the years, but I like it simple. Make it simple. As I've analyzed Matthew 24:14, I've come to this conclusion. Jesus will not return until the gospels reach the 1040 window. Am I stretching anything there? I don't think so. I want to, oh boy, the time is going. I want to show something to the kids here right now. Yeah. Here's a close-up of it. This small little, it's called a talking Bible. It's got a solar collector here in the back. It's powered by the sun, solar collector. You can throw this thing in the mud puddle. You could drive over with a car. You can do everything you can to try to destroy it. It's going to survive. As I stand here before you this morning, on this little radio are pre-recorded the Old and the New Testament, the steps to Christ, a bunch of children's stories, the Great Controversy, stories of Jesus, Christ object lessons, in over 1,000 languages and dialects. Adventist World Radio came up with this concept. And so here's a little 7, 8, 9-year-old standing in the village or at his school, and he turns it on, and then he decides he's going to start listening to a story of Jesus.
These holy words tell about God and how much he loves all people in the world.
So here's the little children's story now, and this little boy's listening to it in one of the 1,000 languages or dialects. Next thing you know, he's got 10, 15 other children surrounding him. Even little children now are becoming evangelists. Gospel Outreach is hoping to send out 100,000 of these into the 1040 window. You know, we don't know how the work's going to be finished, but I do know that organizations like Gospel Outreach are ordained by God. Near the end of the service today, you're going to be given the opportunity to, and we receive a love offering for Gospel Outreach. Not one penny goes to us, just so you know that, okay? We are ambassadors for them. And the little blue brochure you had in your bulletin this morning is something we want you to look at, because there is, on the back panel here, where you can sign up. And by the way, those of you that sign up, we are going to send a special Melashenko music CD, as well as a special, it's about a 45-minute special DVD that we'd like to get to you, and this is all free. We'd like you to just prayerfully consider how you would like to help sponsor one of these Bible workers. The Bible workers, it costs about $150 a month. And most of the Bible workers, there's 2,300 Bible workers that Gospel Outreach is sponsored. Gospel Outreach receives no funding from the church. It's purely a faith-based ministry. Last year, they received about $3.5 million in donations. Most of those are the people that can send $20 or $50 a month, some $10 a month. A few people sponsor, one or two or more Bible workers. But it's like, a little bit becomes a whole bunch when we accumulate it and put it in the hands of God. So look at that. And then at the end of the service, when we're going to be taking the special love offering, if you would just put this in the offering plate with your pledge or whatever you would like. By the way, there's also a little envelope that I don't have with me, but I think a Gospel Outreach envelope in there. If you want to make a donation today and use that, we would greatly appreciate it. I just know this. As long as the Lord gives me breath to sing and to preach, I'm going to share the good news of Gospel Outreach, because it truly is one of those ministries that, as Judy said, when you have all volunteers. The organization, some of the organizations we've worked for, 50, 60% of donations go just for administration and overhead. You know why they call it the March of Dimes? You know why they call the organization March of Dimes? Because 10 cents out of the dollar goes to help whatever they broadcast. We want to share a song with you right now, because God is using these really simple, ordinary people to do incredible, ordinary things for His kingdom.
You know this story. You see, one day a Roman soldier in a shameful gambling game won the blood-stained garment that once had clothed my king. Just a cheap robe of linen, no great value did it hold, but when worn by the master, it was worth more than gold. You see, you know this story. A few days before, this old garment had changed the life of a tired and helpless woman who believed with all her might. She reached out and touched it with the hope to be restored. She knew this plain old garment was the vesture of the Lord. God used His common garments to do uncommon things, and God used His common people to live out His uncommon dreams. It's not what you are now that matters. You see, it's what He can make you to be. 'Cause if God can take an old common garment and change a life, then surely He can use you and me. And here it is, you see, we are reason that Jesus came to die, and we have been chosen to send forth His light. Now it doesn't matter if your worth is great or small. Here it is, you see. God needs some willing vessels, just common garments, that's all. God uses common garments to do uncommon things, and God uses common people to live out His uncommon dreams. It's not what you are now that matters. You see, it's what He can make you to be. 'Cause if God can take an old common garment and change a life, then surely He can use you and me. 'Cause if God can take an old common garment and change a life, then surely He can use you and me.